Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I used to live in a village-esque street that actually resided in an estate. This street had houses that were all around a circle road, like a roundabout. In Northern Ireland, there is a huge mountain called Cavehill, called such because of the amount of caves in the sides of the mountains. I could see Cavehill clear as day from my bedroom window. It was rows and rows of houses, and in the distance, the huge mountain. Cavehill has its dark past. IRA terrorists would usually bring people they had kidnapped up Cavehill to be either kneecapped or executed. There have also been a lot of sightings of weird gatherings of people up there at night when the place is all but empty and closed off. Me and Dad regularly have to drive over Cavehill to collect my little brother from his friends' houses. Driving over at night with no streetlights and very little other cars can be daunting. Regularly, you can see tons of fires up the hills and shadows that look humanoid blocking the light from the fires. Cavehill is regularly lit on fire, maybe by accident or on purpose, by whoever is up there. In my room at night watching Titanic and crying like a true 17-year-old spurg, I always keep my window open at night because our house got too warm, and also the night air smells really pleasant. I'm leaning on my windowsill just looking out my window with a cup of tea. Aesthetic.jpg. It's about 3 a.m. give or take. I hear a massive sound. I can only really say that the sound sounded huge. Helpful, I know. Possible like the sound of being underwater and hearing someone jump in, but magnified by 50. I'm looking around to see what had happened, and I look at Cavehill and nothing unusual. I can see the fire still going, but that wasn't unusual. Think nothing of it and go to bed. The next night I'm at my window again, around the same time maybe. I'm looking around, and where you could normally see the blue of the clouds being illuminated, there was a huge black mass. There are a few radio and telephone poles up there, and this thing was slightly bigger than those. I thought nothing of it really and went to bed. Next night I'm at my window. I'm a creature of habit. Their mass is still there. This mass stayed there for about 3 weeks. I could never see anything during the day. It was only at night, and it would never appear if there weren't fires lit. I tell my friends about this as I'm starting to actually question its existence. Anon, it's either your imagination or just lots of black soot and smoke from the fires. I remain unconvinced because I've seen the fires for years and they've never caused a stationary black mass with definitive shape, but I don't know. I ask if they would be down to go camping up there one night and we could drink and investigate. They agree. We're going up this mountain to camp. It's the 20th of December, so winter in Ireland means it's cold. We sneak into the place. Not that hard, as there's only one horse gate to stop us. Pick a place which is fairly high up so to have a vantage point on the fires. We brought walkie-talkies, remember those? Binoculars, torches, we even had code names. It was amazing. We set up our base and have a little battery-powered lantern thingy in the middle of our plot. Decide to take it in teams. There was 4 of us. We split up into teams of boy and girl. We get picked to stay at camp with one walkie whilst the other team goes down to the fire site. The fires have only just started at this point, so we thought we could maybe see who was lighting them, etc. I'm sitting in the tent with my friend and we're just chatting and checking up with the other team every so often. So far so good, but nothing happening. Other team walkies in to tell us that they're right behind a bush that has a good vantage on the fires. They start snapping pictures of the fires. They are typical hobo fires in metal bins. Every so often they check in with us by waving a flashlight that we can see with binoculars. I'm on the walkie and my partner is on binoculars. The other team can see people. They say that they're linked hands in a circle and aren't moving. Not the bees.jpg. Binoculars can see them but can't make out what they look like. Other team waves a flashlight to check in with us. Binoculars look over at them to see their light and then pans over to the linked people. She gasps and I get a rush of cold going down my spine as I asked her what was up. Anon, I can't see them anymore. There's no one there. I radio in the other team and ask them if everything is cool. No reply. I keep radioing them and no one is replying. Starting to really panic at this point. Binoculars can't see anyone, only the fires. I decided to go recon. Not fun anymore, and I'm genuinely terrified. I'm jogging down towards where they last were. It's about 7 minutes away. I get to the bush that they were at because their torch and walkie are lying there. I hide inside the shrubs and walkie back to binoculars. She says she can see me and she is going to cover me whilst I go onto the field of fires and try and find my friends. Every single Cover P2 in video games mission has trained us for this moment. I walk into the field. It's completely open, so there is nowhere to hide at all. Binoculars says she can't see anyone around. I run up to one of the fires. It's a trash can covered in black painted symbols. How typical. There's triangles and stars and shit. Couldn't make any of it out and didn't care. Am walking about with my flashlight and then binoculars radios in. Anon, there's 2 people running up behind you, run. I panic like shit and run. I'm turning around with the torch to see if I can make them out. The figures are completely black even when I shine a light on them. I keep running until I physically can't anymore. Binoculars radios in and says they've just disappeared when they went out of the light. I'm contemplating crying at this point, but I don't want to be spotted by a bunch of goths crying in the hills. Keep walking forward. Not sure if shouting their names will help find them or give my position away. I look up the hills and I see a huge tower of black. It's the thing I kept seeing from my windows, I assume. I walk towards it because why not .gif? Binoculars says to just come back, but I can't in good conscience leave my friends alone in the hills. I walk up towards the mass until I am right at its foot. Not literally its foot. I stand and look at it for a second. Binoculars have made no mention of it, and I ask if she sees this. After summoning up enough balls, I pick up a stone and throw it at this mass. Great idea, I know, right? The stone passes through it, and I can hear it hit grass, but the mass is so opaque that I don't see it once it goes through. Decide to try and touch it. I walk towards it, and it is pure black. There is a smell of smoke and dust from it, like antiques and fire. I slowly put my hand into it. A huge thump hits the ground. It vibrates my chest like bass at a concert. My hand is cold like it's in water. I went inside completely. The thumb is heard again as I step in. Inside is pitch black. I walk forwards extremely slowly. Binoculars radios me in, but all I hear is feedback and whistling static. I keep walking a bit more, and my foot hits something. Jump out of my skin and stay instantly still. Point my torch down to the ground and see my friends lying there. They're lying in a pile like they've been dumped there. My heart actually sings. I put the torch into my mouth and grab them both and drag them out. I drag them about 10 meters away from the mass. I radio into binoculars to fill her in and she starts crying. I want to join in on that crying business, but I try to wake the 2 up. One comes through after about 10 minutes and the other follows shortly after. I don't even stop to ask if they're okay before I grab the both of them by their collars and trail them on our way back to camp. We take the long way up over the hills to avoid having to walk through the fire fields. As we're walking up, binoculars radios in to tell us to look at the fields. I look over, and all of the fires are being knocked over and thrown around. The whole field is catching on fire, and the very, very faint sound of screaming can be heard. Angry screaming. Nope, fuck that shit.exe. We make it back to camp and finally sit down to breathe. The other team started off to the fire fields at about 10 p.m., and it's nearly 5 a.m. at this point. My codename was Winona, by the way. I really enjoyed the works of Winona Ryder at the time. The others were just A, B, and C. I had to be different. Anyway, we examined the other team to see how they were. They had huge gashes on the backs of their heads like they'd been hit with something. Thankfully, we brought first aid. I played Elder Scrolls like no man's business, so I knew how to prepare for adventure. They were sick and very forgetful and drowsy, so we figured they had a concussion or something. Or maybe just exhausted because I was exhausted. I took the binoculars outside and looked to see if the huge mass was still there, and it wasn't. The fires on the field were dying down as it was too cold and dewing for fires. The sun was rising and I couldn't see a single soul on the mountain. Against our better judgment of maybe taking our friends home and maybe getting them to a doctor, we decided to stay until 7 a.m. because that's when the hills open technically and civilians have equal safety. Skip a week after this. Lots of parents being very angry and we were all fine. The other 2 just had bumps and some minor cuts. Parents won't believe us and think we just got drunk and they fell. We didn't even get time to drink, and I wished I had. I ask around about the Cavehill, find some stories of kids going missing and being found in bags in the Lagan, etc. This one in particular. Never see the mass on the mountain again. If anyone knows what we saw and got ourselves into, please post below because it's bothered me ever since. Brian McDermott was a 10-year-old schoolboy who disappeared in Belfast, Northern Ireland in 1973. He was last seen at Ormeau Park on the 2nd of September 1973. He failed to return to his home on Well Street in the lower Woodstock Road area of Crega, Belfast. A week after he went missing, the River Lagan was lowered and a sack containing some of his remains was found.
Got a story, fellas. I don't know what went down, but I'll share it anyway for the crack. Living in rural Northern Ireland, a few minutes walk away from Portmore Loch, a small enough loch surrounded by small, swampy forest. There was a field between my house and the loch. The tree line blocks me from actually seeing it. Used to drive around the loch to a bird hide on the other side where there was some Twitchers club. Knew a few people there and liked to chill and watch shit on the loch before going fishing the odd time. If it weren't for the forest and a wee hill, you could see my house from the hide. One evening in winter, it's getting real dark real early, and I'm chilling in the hide. Glance over at the far shore and see some fella standing there, staring at the water. Think it was a fella anyway. It was too dark to really make out details, just some slender dude. Looks a bit drunk. He's standing knee-deep in shitty, marshy water just glaring downwards. Suddenly, he coos forward face first into the water. Drunk.avi. He doesn't get back up. Nobody around to alert. Didn't bring my phone. Drive home and take the dog out into the woods to see what the hell happened. Head to roughly where I saw him. All his clothes are on the shore, correctly arranged with the shirt spread out and the jeans beneath it, etc. No shoes, though. Figure it was just some Egypt on a bender and head home. Police are at my door the next evening asking about a missing person. Don't recognize the name, it's not anyone local. Tell them about the fella from last night. Some police are scooting about in the woods for a while, but eventually that's that and I hear nothing more about it. Pic related is the view from my window. Past the far tree line in the background is the swamp. Not pre-typed, sorry. Walking the dog in the field next to the swamp because the farmer that owns the closer one has his dumbass sheep in it. Getting dark. Notice something moving in the tree line. Somebody's absolutely charging through the swamp, running like the devil's on his heels. Call out to him and ask if he's all right. He stops and turns to face me. Let out the weirdest yell I've ever heard. Sounded like that kid from The Grudge who makes cat sounds only way deeper. Then he just stands there staring. Dog starts freaking out and barking. I saunter a bit closer and ask if he's on anything, or if he needs some water or food to chill out. We've all been there like. Somebody else shouts, "No, get the hell off," from in the swamp, and there's a gunshot. Assume it's the Provos again. Guy in the tree line turns and bolts in that direction. Provos, run back home and ring the police. They come out again, same shit. Eventually leave without finding anything. Start to wonder what's happening. Any of the lads I tell don't believe or reckon I was blinded. In my room that night, chilling out. Go to close the window to stop those asshole flies coming in. Pause. Two people standing in the far field, not moving, just standing. Grab my binoculars and look. I want to say they were both staring at me, but all I could tell was that they were facing my direction. Little bit spooked, but go out and see what's up. Bring the dog with me. It's a small dog, more for comfort than anything. Get to the gate at the field. They're still there. Shout to them asking if they're lost or something. Tell them it's private land. They both start making that cat noise. It stops when I take a step into the field. Tell them to quit their games and fuck off home. One of them shouts back, "Do you want to come with us?" Nope.avi. Go home. It wasn't deep water. He just fell and landed on the reeds. He was half on his side, so shit, unless he rolled onto his front, I guess he was okay. Figured I'd find some paralytic and have to lead him out of the swamp. Nothing goes down for a couple weeks, so I decided to walk my dog to the loch again. It's foggy as shit, but whatever, it's early. Dandering through the trees along a path that's been trampled into place by all the other people who used to walk here before the hide was put up on the other shore. Find a bunch of clothes. All laid out the same way as the other fellas, except these ones are a little more tattered. Ignore it. Don't care if it's drunks or skinny dippers. Don't want none of that shite. Hear a cow making some bullshit racket in the distance. Figure one of the farmers must be moving them. Getting closer to the shore. Find remains of what looks like a campfire. Bunch of empty beers lying around. Probably those Provos from a while back. Walking back through the swamp. Suddenly I come across two young fellas and an elderly woman. All naked. What did I just walk in on? Dogs whining a bit, backing away. Ask what the hell they're doing. Just out for a walk, you. Why are you naked? One of the lads laughs and says, "Why aren't you? Sure, the weather's decent." Awkward silence. Hear that cow sound again. Wait.jpg. There are no cows anywhere near here, just sheep in the field near my house. Sound again. It's closer. Realize it's that shriek again. You been down to the shore recently? Asks the other young fella. No. Seen some trout might be worth it. Fancy it. Nah, I'm just gonna head on home here, mate. Mon, it'll only be for a minute, sure. Elderly woman takes a step forward. Dog bolts. I follow. Run the whole way home and call the police again. Get told off for wasting time when they don't find shit. Tell the farmer. Tells me to take a photo of any other trespassers. As if I'm going back.
I have been hiking since 2004, mostly alone and all over Ireland. In December 2015, I was in a very remote and isolated area of the Sperrins Mountains. I had walked to 3 hilltops surrounded by dense forest and was heading back up a hill towards a tree line to my car when I saw something very tall and large moving faster behind me 1 kilometer away. It was walking heading down the hill towards me on a route I had just taken. I am not easily spooked, but I did not hang about as I am of the opinion that if it wanted to, it could have caught up with me easily. I have pondered this for a while now, but I haven't a clue what it was to this day, as I see people on the hills and mountains at various distances. But this was taller than a 6-foot person at the distance I saw it. 8 feet plus is my guess. As I didn't have a gun, only hiking poles, I was not about to wait and find out. My hiking bag now has binoculars added. I have my walk recorded on a GPS unit. I walk all year and all weather from good to zero visibility, and I am well used to seeing everything appearing out of the mist. But on this walk I had great visibility, and I know about the optical illusions and what lone trees can give when walking. I don't know what I saw, as I see deer and quad bikes on the mountains regularly along with hikers, dogs, and runners depending where I walk. All I can say is that the thing I saw, for want of a better word, was out in the open following a fence down a hill I had just left in the same direction. It was moving fast and was on 2 legs and 8 foot plus easy in height. I am not one for seeing things, but this was huge and spooked me big time. I am now going to carry a monocular when hiking as it's handy to put in the pocket. Even at my age, middle 50s, I have only ever seen 3 badgers in Ireland, so I certainly don't rule anything out in life, as most wild creatures are very cautious and secretive and rarely seen. I would like to see camera traps being set. The area I walked in was wet, but no river with some very marshy ground on my first hill near my starting point up past 2 forests. The hill is known as Carnelly West Top and is 505 meters high. The big thing was coming towards me as I left Carnelly West Top and was walking towards Mullabane Summit. That's all I can tell you. I actually waited in my car for it to come over the top of Mullabane as I exited over this summit and turned left heading west to my car parked on a very minor road. Nothing appeared, not something I wish to repeat again. To date, I have walked nearly 300 different mountains in Ireland alone, from one end of the country to the other, so I see a lot of great views, and sometimes nothing, but this was totally different. Having walked nearly 50 of the 100 highest in the country. To date, I have walked nearly 300 different mountains in Ireland alone from one end of the country to the other, so I see a lot of great views, and sometimes nothing, but this was totally different. Having walked nearly 50 of the 100 highest in the country.
Me and friends are around 16, Northern Ireland, drinking a few beers outside a big abandoned house walking distance from the beach. Loftshore. Usually come here for a few drinks, break bottles, smoke, normal teen shit. Someone gets the idea to actually go into the house. Windows are all boarded up, one is smashed so we climb through. Already getting dark outside so I can't see shit in here. Pre-mobile era. but I have a wee torch on my key ring. Quietly look around, nothing really interesting. All rooms are empty except for some rubbish. We go upstairs, find a big empty bedroom and stairs going up to the loft. Decide to camp out in the room and have another few beers. After around 20 minutes, we hear something downstairs, footsteps and a voice. We all freeze, hear it getting closer to the bottom of the stairs. One friend crawls over and slowly shuts the door, puts his back against it. I turned out the light. We sit in the dark, hear the steps coming up. Sounds like one guy making grunting sounds and shouting, can't make out any words, sounds like he's bumping into walls, maybe fighting something. This is definitely some junkie or drunk, and we're about to get stabbed. The sound continues past, hear him going upstairs to the loft. I turn the light back on. All of us are staring at the ceiling, listening to the steps. Sounds like he moves around the room upstairs, then it just stops. Eventually, we start whispering to each other. One friend really wants to leave. One friend has had a bit too many and wants to see who or what it is. Enough people agree, don't want to be a wuss, so I stay. Make friend at the door go first. He's the biggest. We slowly creeped out and headed up the stairs. The only thing up here is the door to the room. Friend stands with his hand on the handle for a full minute, eventually opens it. The room's empty. There's a skylight that isn't covered, so we're getting some light. But there's nothing. No other doors, no furniture, no person. We look around for a hidden door or something, but the walls are bare. Big Friend starts to get a little hysterical. We head back downstairs and start looking around. At one point, someone grabs the torch from me and starts running from room to room. Kicking open doors, we're all laughing and calling for whatever this thing was. Eventually get freaked out. We all go home and don't talk about it for months. Obviously, never go back there to drink. In the cold light of day, it doesn't sound like much of an encounter, but it still freaks me out. I'm in touch with some of those guys, and we tell the story when we're drinking with new people. One friend writes it off as nothing, just some guy we didn't notice leave or was hiding somewhere. But there was nowhere in that house a person could have been without us finding them, and we would have heard them leave. Later, we realized we didn't even hear the door open or close upstairs, just steps going up and then directly above us.
Been here since 2008. Ended up doing a lot of /X/I things with my life. Can tell the story of the time I likely avoided being killed by the IRA while on a ghost hunt if anyone wants to hear. Okay, here goes. Bit of a long story, but the setup is essential. I'm a filmmaker. During college, while I was hiking the outskirts of my town getting B-roll, a nice old guy pulled over and gave me a lift back to town. Let's call him Jack. We have a short chat. He lets me off. I think nothing of it. 2 years later, I'm out of college, unemployed, creatively tired. He bumps into me, tells me he's a member of a paranormal investigation group, and asks me if I'd like to make a documentary about them. Fucking would I? I join him on weekly meetings with this group in a pub in Dublin. I'm hiding my power level this entire time and trying to ingratiate myself as a documentarian interested in making something about them and about ghost hunting as a hobby, not a ghost adventures thing where I try to catch evidence on camera. They're a pretty quirky bunch, but to keep it short, there's some drama between members, particularly this one French seductress who is only there to try and bone the men while the women snipe at her. I join them on a few hunts, find nothing but get to see spooky castles at night. Back in my hometown, I regularly talk to the locals and share my stories. Most people say, "Ha, that's wacky," before eventually saying, "I saw a ghost, don't tell anyone." But one guy, Billy, who was originally from Northern Ireland and was some sort of small-time border-hopping criminal when he was younger, tells me of this haunted house on a back road in the middle of nowhere, the Cuneen Ghost House. The place is the site of a recorded exorcism in the early 1920s, though there's also loads of folklore and fictionalized retellings of what happened there. Billy, who is usually really lighthearted and takes nothing seriously, tells me coldly, "Make sure you tell either the local police or the local pub you're investigating ghosts there, or you might not come out alive." Billy specified investigating ghosts at night, due to how suspicious that looks. Now, for those unaware, the IRA these days are mostly and officially not active due to the ceasefire agreement and have mostly quietened down. There are some diehards that still expect a war and have caches of weapons hidden around the countryside. My own town found a cache in the woods in recent years. But mostly the IRA are comprised of teenagers basically wanting to be in a gang with tenuous relations to any sort of coherent political movement. But tensions still exist in the small border towns, and the ghost house was right in that area of the country. I took Billy very seriously on the matter and relayed this to Jack multiple times. Jack, myself, and a Wiccan called Ellen did a recon during the day when I took all these pictures, and it definitely had an atmosphere. Took us about 45 minutes to get there as the route was through hilly back roads almost the entire way. You can see this on Google Maps, but it's a seriously small, out-of-the-way road, with a spot for parking for the local forestry loggers across from the entrance to the house itself. You can see this on Street View. So we check it out, very spooky, then head back with plans to come back in a few weeks at night with the team for an official investigation. Now, because there was internal drama, this got fucked up. The French seductress had her birthday coming up, and some people in the team didn't want to go and thus made excuses that they were busy with whatever. One of which was Jane, and woman who was the oldest extant member of the team. So come the night of the investigation, there is only 4 of us. Me, Jack, Ellen, Jane. The rest of the team don't know where we are. We don't have all the equipment and it's all very last minute. I would now like to mention that Jack was a horrible driver. Hilly back roads at night and a broken speedometer made this much worse. The 45-minute drive turned into a 2-hour drive. One of the roads Google Maps kept sending us down had an unmarked blockade in the middle of it, not so much as a sign or lights or anything. Jack had to slam the brakes to not crash right into it. This sent him on a loop, turning back to find some way around, seemingly forgetting what he was doing, then following maps back to the same blockade, twice. Eventually, he figures it out and finds the back roads we took before, but now he's speeding. Every single hill. We send the car into the air, firing off sparks from the back like it's a Chinese parade. I am completely shitting it, white knuckle the whole way. I ask him to slow down more than once, but the other 2 clowns in the car don't seem to mind. He'd nearly gotten into crashes twice before with me in the car on our way to the meetings. At this point, I bring up that, because it's later than planned and the pub will probably be closed, if he called the police station. LOL, no, it'll be grand. I'm naturally pissed, but at this point I'm not sure I'll make it there alive anyway. Plus, it seems unlikely anyone will find us. At one point I ask for a piss break and he slams the brakes when he spots a ditch. I consider just running south across the fields as I piss, but don't because I think I'm overreacting. We didn't encounter a single car. Thank God, because we would have hit it or run off the road, so maybe it will be grand. I get back in and tell them that if we do run into the RA, tell them we're shooting a film and mention nothing about ghost hunting because that sounds dumb. Finally, we get there. We pull left into the little parking spot, cross the narrow road, climb down to the path to the house. It's past midnight already, it's cold, it's raining, it's shite. No ghosts either, surprise, surprise. We don't have our equipment either, which is mostly EMF sensors, thermometers, and other cheap shit you can find in a hardware shop. So even if we felt like it, there wasn't much we could do. So we turned to leave after about 45 minutes, and as we go back down the path towards the road in our car. 2 cars pull up and block our way. Typical boy racer cars too. And 8 young lads pour out of them and start walking towards us. Almost 1 a.m. on a back road in the middle of nowhere, seconds before we leave. Shitting it, I tell Ghost Team Rule 1, do not say we're looking for ghosts, will be executed. When one of the lads, surprised to see us here and pretending badly that he had no clue, says with a Belfast accent, "Who's this then? There's people in here. What are ye up to?" Jack immediately replies, "We're ghost hunters." Now we're the most interesting people in the world. These lads all want to know our names, are trying to suss us out, keep inviting us back into the house for cans. I say, no, we're on our way home, bye now, bye, and practically pull Jack and the other 2 into the car. And even then, Jack doesn't immediately leave. He doesn't notice that there are still people in the other two cars watching us until the one blocking our way pulls over to let us go. We eventually get back home, almost driving into the blockade from the other side. I don't even say goodbye to these total lunatics, never talk to them again. I tell Billy this whole story and he laughs but tells me how lucky that didn't go any worse. Otherwise, the only ghosts on that investigation would have been us. Actually, shit, I should probably give some details on the house itself. Since the time I was there in 2015, all the surrounding forestry was cut down, having been grown for timber. There's a small zone of trees around the house and its path itself that are much older and wilder, but it's now much more exposed to the elements. The tin roof was added in fairly recent times too, but the interior of the house was basically left untouched, with a partial wooden second floor remaining that Jack climbed onto while we were below him, because fuck us if it collapsed. It has also since then been boarded up, probably around the time the trees were cut down, so these might be the last photos of the interior. There are parish records of an exorcism on the house itself taking place in 1912, I think. Haven't kept links to my sources. It didn't work, and the family living inside, reportedly a single mother, a son, and a daughter, packed up and moved to America instead. That much seems to be true, but the cause and focus of the haunting varies from tale to tale. One I kept hearing was that the son just seemingly found a book of spells in the forests, and IDK accidentally a poltergeist with it. Beyond that, it was standard poltergeist stuff. Knocks on the walls, beds and bedclothes being thrown across the room, and disembodied voices, in this case singing the Republic National Anthem, which would be impressive because it had only existed for 4 years by that point, and other marching songs. There's a weird, very Northern Ireland superstition that ghosts will only follow people with Mac or O in their name, aka Catholics, but all of that just sounds like sectarian jabs. There's some articles online if you're interested in knowing more.
This happened to me a while ago. Be me, 27, Belfast, Northern Ireland. It's picking day. Start by going to usual Saturday car boot sale. Haggle an old lady for an old sheathed knife for £5, add it to my bag of other knickknacks. Jump into car and travel about 45 minutes outside of my local area to an old corner shop that has recently closed. The current owner recently died and her son gave me permission to look about and take anything that was left there. This small building has been around from the late 1800s and has always been some sort of shop as far as I know. Excited to rummage through and see what I can find. When I get there, the first things I find are old Coca-Cola items from roughly late 40s or 50s, including a rotating display thing and what looked like a branded gas cylinder with valves and shit. Get these items into the car and continue looking for a few other bits and pieces. Hear a car pull up. Go outside and see 2 old dudes who say they are here to do maintenance. Say they have been maintaining this building for over 20 years. Whatever, let them work away. Whilst rummaging, I see an attic door that has been sealed shut with loads of oddly big nails and ask the workers about it. Say they have never been allowed up there. Get intrigued. The previous owner is dead, so who's gonna stop me from having a look? Grab a torch and a claw hammer from the car and start working the nails out. Takes about half an hour because there are so many and are so big and embedded in for who knows how long. Finally get the last nail out and push the door up. Get a face full of dust, but don't care because this is a picker's dream. Drop the hammer and grab the knife I just bought because who knows what the hell is living up there. Put my head up and shine the torch around. Lots of things covered in tarps and sheets. There is a ghost under one, I'm sure of it. .jpg. See some old signage sticking out the end of one of the sheets and start getting excited. Climb up all the way but have to bend my head because it's pretty cramped. Make a beeline straight to the signs, and my wishes are true. Lots of very old signs for things like Pepsi Cola, shop signs, bread and water signs, etc. Lower them down to the floor below, and as I'm doing this I hear a thump, but assume I have dislodged something in my haste to get the signs down. Once finished, I start removing the tarps slowly because they are thick with dust. Most of them are old cashiers, old shelving and chairs, etc. One tarp catches my attention while all the other tarps are white and covered in thick gray dust. This particular one had absolutely no dust on it. It looked like it's covering a chest or trunk or something, and when I uncover it, sure enough, I'm right. This doesn't look like your average chest. It is covered in strange writings and symbols that on closer inspection look to be scratched or carved into it. Looks like Arabic mixed with hieroglyphics and has a strange-looking padlock thing securing it roughly 1 meter wide by half a meter high. It's hammertime.mkv. Jump to the floor below and grab the hammer ready to smash this open. When I touch the padlock with the hammer, I feel a pain travel up my arm and feel as if someone has shoved me to the ground. Freak out and jump back down below where I sit shaking, trying to recover. Look at my arm and there are red marks from my hand right up to my shoulder that looked like lightning. Fades away after 10 minutes or so. When I have composed myself, I slowly go back up and grab my tools and throw them down below. Tentatively uncover the rest of the items while avoiding the chest. But there's no other strange items and not much else of interest. Take one of the old cashiers and load it into my car with the other items I've found. Decide if I should take the weird box or not. Seen my fair share of films that have cursed items in them and decide I'd rather not die, so I nope the fuck out of there. Close the door and put 4 or 5 nails back in just to securely hold it. The workers have been in the small garden car park area for the past while trimming back the trees. Ask if I found anything interesting. Nah, just a couple of signs and a cashier. Leave the place still slightly unnerved. Get back home and try to research anything about cursed boxes while deciding if I should go back and try to open it. Decide to leave it for a while and go back with a buddy in a couple of months. Try and get back during the summer if I can and update you.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.